as he's being led around like a puppy dog on a leash, more like one of Kirsty Noem's puppy dogs after it acted up. Donald Trump actually just wandering away from the Japanese Prime Minister, with the look of absolute horror and shock on her face.
Thank you very much. A big hello. This is a special group of patriots, champions, winners. You are winners. Oh, I'd love to have your job. Inflation has been defeated, and workers' wages are rising at the fastest pace in 60 years, and that includes your wages. They're rising in the fastest pace. The workers, I'm not talking about the rich people. Rich people, everyone's doing well. Everyone in our country is now doing well.
Can you even imagine being such a low-life, draft-dodging scumbag speaking during your own government shutdown to troops that are currently not being paid, while more troops that are currently not being paid are being deployed to U.S. cities to round up U.S. citizens, and then trying to get everybody to believe that everything is okay and everything's hunky-dory? Well, that's exactly what Donald Trump did on a recent trip to Japan, and that is just the beginning of the embarrassment that he caused us on the world stage. What's going on, guys? I'm Boston Brian. Welcome to the Dollemore Daily, and those eagle-eyed viewers out there probably have noticed already that I am not Jesse Dollemore. You are absolutely correct. Jesse has entrusted me, and I am very grateful for this opportunity with his channel while he makes his way back from Japan. So, again, I'm Boston Brian. I host a little podcast called Blunt Politics. If you guys would be kind enough to maybe hit me with a follow, check it out, see if you like it. If you like the content, I would be very grateful if you could subscribe to the channel. But we have a lot to get to. I'm very thankful once again to Jesse for allowing me to step in for just a couple days while he brings himself back, and that's if Donald Trump will allow him back into the country, but I guess that's a different video for a different time. But yeah, Donald Trump embarrassing us on the world stage as he does. I mean, that's pretty much what he does everywhere he goes. But this was extra embarrassing as his cognitive abilities decline rapidly in front of our eyes. This time, and as we like to point out on Blunt Politics, a lot of the times it's basically just pointing out Donald Trump's hypocrisy and his ignorance, right? He's ignorant to a lot of things, and the hypocrisies and what he just says and comes up on both sides of the argument all the time is just, it's really easy to point out. And none of these clips, none of these examples bring that to the light better than this clip here that I'm about to play for you, where let's kind of remember where Donald Trump is. He's in Japan, speaking in Japan to U.S. troops, okay? And he's talking about the spoils of war. Now, if we think about it, we defeated Japan in World War II. We dropped 2 nuclear bombs on their cities. And I'm not sure if Japan really would have been too happy with us, taking over their country, occupying their country, and taking the spoils of war, in the years following World War II. But here's Donald Trump talking about how, people are pretty stupid not to take the spoils of war, and that basically we should have kept Iraq, we should have kept Afghanistan. But here's Donald Trump in Japan talking about the spoils of war without recognizing the blatant hypocrisy and the ignorance in the statement that he's making. Check it out.
We'd go in, we'd win, and then we'd leave. They used to say, to the victor belong the spoils. Well, we'd be the victor, then we'd leave, because we had people that didn't know what the hell they were doing. But we're also very honored to be joined by hundreds of our incredible Japanese partners, and they are incredible. Thank you very much.
Ah, yes, those great Japanese partners and allies who I'm sure would have absolutely no problem if the United States still occupied and controlled the entirety of their country since World War II. Just an absolute moron this guy is. I just can't even stand it. And it doesn't stop there, because he goes on to lie through his teeth. And even when he's lying, he somehow manages to lie selfishly, like the sociopathic, egotistical, maniacal moron that he is. Because in this next clip, he goes on to talk about how the United States is more respected on the world stage, which is just objectively false. It's just provably false. And this was the same thing. This was also true in his first administration, during his first regime that he had, where on the world stage, the United States on the whole was much less respected by everybody, by more countries than they were, but through or under any other leader, any other president that we had. And it's the same thing here in Donald Trump's second regime, his second term. We are laughed at, we are being mocked, we are being ridiculed by everybody, by multiple leaders on the world stage at very prominent events, in front of cameras, in front of microphones. I'm sure you've seen the clips. But here's Donald Trump acting like a moron, lying selfishly through his teeth. Somehow he just can't get himself to stop saying that they respect him. Like, he keeps interjecting himself as opposed to the United States. It's utterly remarkable to watch the sociopathic nature of this madman. and how much power he holds. It's scary. It really is. But check this out, where he's talking about, again, a provably false statement, objectively false, saying that the United States is more respected on the world stage than it was during any other leader. It's just crazy. Check it out.
Japan respects us. If you see what's going on all over the world, they're respecting us again. They respect us like never before. The treatment they gave me all over as I go around to different countries is great, but it's really a respect for me, but it's a bigger respect for our country. They respect our country again. They didn't respect our country just a few years ago.
It's almost impossible to calculate the amount of utter delusion he would need in order to believe a statement like that. But speaking of the respect or lack thereof that Japan has for Donald Trump, here's a pretty good clip that we got from this trip, just kind of showing the respect that he has as he's being led around like a puppy dog on a leash, more like one of Kirsty Noem's puppy dogs after it acted up. But anyways, here it is. Just one of the most remarkable things. Donald Trump actually just wandering away from the Japanese prime minister with a look of absolute horror and shock on her face as she has to greet and bow to the recipients by herself as Donald Trump, again, is wandering away from his leash. But again, the respect that the people have, as Donald Trump was talking about. Here's a pretty good example of that respect. It's like she's gently trying to coerce her grandfather back into the home because somebody accidentally left the door open. It's just a remarkable sight to see, and embarrassing on all fronts, and just highly humiliating for the United States on the world stage. But again, this trip to Japan for Donald Trump kind of reminded me, especially when he's speaking in front of troops, trying to kind of make it seem like he's rubbing shoulders, and one of the guys really irked something in me and really brought something back up as far as memories are concerned, because in Donald Trump's first administration in 2019, he also took another trip to Japan, and in that same trip, it was sent out in a memo through the military that the USS John McCain, which is named after 3 generations of American heroes, not just John McCain, but his father and also his grandfather as well. And that ship had to be out of sight per the instructions on this memo. Now, taking into account everything that we've heard Donald Trump say about veterans being suckers and losers, not attending the service in France, talking about how he doesn't like that soldiers that were captured, he likes soldiers that weren't captured. And again, this is the man that had several deferments in order to get himself out of serving in the armed forces, serving in Vietnam, which is, again, makes the hypocrisy almost too much to bear. But again, just a reminder, just to kind of flash back and give you a little bit of more evidence as to suggest that this guy does not give a shit about the troops, does not give a shit about anybody but himself. Here's a little bit of a reminder about the time where the USS John McCain, an active duty U.S. warship with very proud sailors and soldiers on that ship, who are proud to represent not only that ship, but also their uniforms, were not only shunned to the back, but also not allowed to attend the service at this same naval base. Here's just a short clip from Fox News, kind of reminding you of that circumstance. Check it out.
During the president's trip to, or actually before he went to Japan, the White House military office sent this email to the Navy, and I want to read it. USS John McCain needs to be out of sight. Once the story became public, here was the president's reaction.
Now, somebody did it because they thought I didn't like him, okay?
Gee, and I wonder what would have given the salivating sycophants surrounding you that impression. I don't know, was it the time where you called John McCain a guy that actively flew a fighter jet into an active war zone, got shot down, spent time at a POW camp after being tortured, and then went on to further serve his country? Are we talking about, that instance in where you called him not a war hero and went on to talk about how you didn't like soldiers that were captured and only liked soldiers that weren't captured, again, after actively using several deferments to stay out of the military yourself?
And I said, somebody should run against John McCain, who has been, in my opinion, not so hot. And I supported him. I supported him for president. I raised $1 million for him. It's a lot of money. I supported him. He lost. He let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero.
He's a war hero.
He's a war hero.
5.5 years.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
I mean, I don't know what possibly could have given him that idea. And I don't for a second believe that Donald Trump wasn't directly behind that memo. But even if he wasn't, it points to a more Hitler-esque style of governance, where after the T4 euthanasia program, where Hitler faced the blowback from the citizenry in his own country, he kind of went on to stay away from putting pen to paper, putting his name and signing his name to any direct orders, especially relating to the Holocaust or any murderous, policies that they were putting in place. That was more towards Goering. But again, this just kind of leads to the fact where it's the people and the sycophants surrounding Hitler and surrounding people like Donald Trump that have to kind of interpret what Donald Trump wants to see done, because he's too fucking weak and lame to give a direct and specific order. But these people just take it upon themselves. Or maybe it was this time where you actively mocked a war hero that was beaten and tortured in his time spent at the Hanoi Hilton, a famously brutal prisoner of war camp in Vietnam. I mean, could it have been this instance that told your sycophantic Nazi followers to go after these people?
Part of that delivery, Trump mocked McCain's injuries. Take a listen to what he said.
We're going to fight for much better health care than Obamacare. Obamacare is a catastrophe. Nobody talks about it. Without John McCain, we would have had it done. But John McCain, for some reason, couldn't get his arm up that day. Remember? He goes like that. That was the end of that.
And again, this wouldn't be the first or the last time this sorry bag of orange skin would go on to demean and degrade somebody with a disability. This time, the guy, Mr. Bone Spurs, again with the deferments, actively demeaning and degrading somebody who was injured while being tortured in a prisoner of war camp in Vietnam, the same war that Donald Trump dodged. Now, if you can kind of figure out how to get your head around that one, I would love to know, because I'm still trying to do the same. But, Donald Trump doing what he does best, embarrassing us on the world stage while trying to portray himself as some military genius. But we need to continue to call this stuff out. We need to continue to remember stories like the USS John McCain. We need to continue to remember comments like the suckers and losers, and like not showing up to the cemetery in France, and like saying that he doesn't like veterans that have been captured. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. But I really do appreciate the opportunity. Thank you once again, Jesse, for allowing me to, take hold of the reins here on your channel for a couple days. Thank you once again. I do appreciate it. I'm Boston Brian. I host a little podcast called Blunt Politics. You can follow me on Blue Sky, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. Please make sure you check it out. Thank you. And I'll see you next time for the next video. Until then, keep kicking ass, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go. If Donald Trump is going to knowingly and willingly defy the Constitution and break the law, he should be arrested and tried for those crimes. Period. Point blank. End of story.
If you read the Constitution, it says he's not, but if he says he has some different circumstances that might be able to go around the Constitution, but that's up to him. We got a long way to go before that happens. Well, I think that there's going to have to be an evaluation from President Trump's viewpoint to the Constitution. There'll be a lot of legal aspects to it. Will it happen? It's very unlikely, but don't ever close the book on President Trump.
The only thing I hate more than an unrepented fascist is a dumb, ignorant, unrepented fascist. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dollemore Daily. I'm Boston Brian, filling in for Jesse as he makes his way back from Japan. And the man you just heard is quite possibly the dumbest man ever to walk the halls of Congress, in former football coach and now Republican senator from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville, being questioned about Donald Trump's rhetoric about his third term and going on to out himself as a fascist, talking about the end arounds, the way around the Constitution. Again, I am unaware of any way around the Constitution, but that doesn't stop these morons from continuing to be sycophants, continuing with their propagandistic rhetoric and not calling out what they know to be the law. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the man that now thinks that Sharia law is the biggest threat we now face in the United States, as ICE, Border Patrol, and DHS are ripping people out of their homes, out of Home Depot parking lots, out of their places of work, out of courtrooms, out of hospitals, out of schools, and rounding them up with American citizens, I might add, almost 200 now, just because of the way they look, just because of the color of their skin, just because of what they're wearing, because of tacit permission given to them by people like Tom Homan, Stephen Miller, Donald Trump. As that's going on, this idiot this moronic piece of shit is actually trying to get you to believe that the most prominent problem we now face in this country is Sharia law. I shit you not. Take a look.
I ruffled some feathers a few weeks ago when I came to the Senate floor to talk about what I believe is the greatest national security threat facing the United States of America: radical Islam and Sharia law.
And just to further drive home the point of just how dumb, incompetent, ignorant, and unqualified somebody like Tommy Tuberville is to serve in Congress, to serve in our government, not only that, but to be asked questions about the Constitution, something he has absolutely no understanding of whatsoever. Here he is getting the three branches of government about as wrong as you could possibly get this. And yes, it gets worse than this. But here he is, once again, on his own accord, brought up by his own stupidity, messing up the three branches of government as a senator, as a Republican senator from Alabama. Again, when we look at the education rate in Alabama, not really confusing as to why he might get this answer wrong. But check this out.
Listen to what the former college football coach said when asked if he thought the two parties could find a way to work together in Congress.
You know, our government wasn't set up for one group to have all three of branches of government. It wasn't set up that way. Or three branches, you know, the House, the Senate, and the executive.
Now, the three branches are, of course, the executive, the legislative, which is both the House and the Senate, and the judiciary.
So this guy who clearly doesn't know his ass from his elbow cannot name you to save his life the three branches of our government, is actively calling for the subversion of the Constitution in order to give Donald Trump an extra third term onto that, is now, and it gets even worse, has absolutely no idea the difference between socialism, communism, Nazism, and fascism, and is actively trying to get you to believe that his father, who he says liberated Paris, even though it was the Second Armored of the French who liberated Paris, technically, went in there to save Europe from the threat of socialism. Now, as we all know here, and anybody that's paid attention to blunt politics with our love of history and World War II knows that they were fighting against fascism and Nazism. And just because they called themselves National Socialists does not make them socialists. But again, here's Tommy Tuberville just outing himself as being, again, the dumbest man to possibly ever walk the halls of Congress. Check this out.
My dad, as you know, I said this last time, he quit school at 16, joined the Army, landed at Normandy at 18, drove a tank across Europe. He said, I've never gotten the look on the people's face in Paris when we liberated Paris from socialism and communism.
I'm honestly and truly not sure you could get any stupider than that. I mean, not only were the Nazis not socialists, but the communists, aka the Soviet Union, were actually the friends, the allies of the United States during the fight against fascism, during the fight against Nazism. And it wasn't until the end of World War II and until the Cold War started that the communists, aka the Soviet Union, became the enemy to the United States. But going back to this whole talk of Donald Trump's third term and this mealy-mouthed response that everybody on the right is giving, you know, trying to, again, either let Donald Trump down gently or lend it some credence as to having, you know, some sort of pathway to success, which is just even more asinine. But, you know, along the lines of sycophantic, propagandistic morons that just lick the boot, kiss the ass of Donald Trump. Here's Mike Johnson doing his best to let Donald Trump down easily and to kind of, you know, make it seem like he's half for it, but half against it while he knows the law, but seems like there's possibly a path, but it's also trolling the Democrats. This is kind of a longer clip that I'm going to play here, but I do think it's important that we hear this whole response from Mike Johnson, again, being asked about Donald Trump's third term, the rhetoric about his third term, and him kind of lending credence to the possibility of running for his third term. So here it is, Mike Johnson doing his best to talk out of both sides of his mouth because of the weak, ineffective wuss that he is.
Well, there is the 22nd Amendment. I spoke with the president about an hour ago. It's late in the evening in Japan. He's working around the clock, serving the American people. He doesn't stop. Talk about someone who works around the clock. And as Chairman Pfluger mentioned a moment ago, and as we've reiterated in here so many times, you're looking at the split screen because under President Trump, the Republican Party has delivered. I mean, you're talking about reducing taxes, reducing regulations, cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, ended the border crisis, ending the crime crisis, resolving conflicts, wars around the globe, and working on these amazing trade agreements. It's been a great run. But I think the president knows, and he and I have talked about the constrictions of the Constitution, as much as so many of the American people lament that. The Trump 2028 cap is one of the most popular that's ever been produced, and he has a good time with that, trolling the Democrats whose hair is on fire about the very prospect. But I do believe that we've got 3 extraordinary years ahead of us, and the 2 years of the Trump administration are going to be an incredible thing. And I don't see a way to amend the Constitution because it takes about 10 years to do that, as you all know, to allow all the states to ratify what 2/3 of the House and 3/4 of the states would approve. So I don't see the path for that, but I can tell you that we are not going to take our foot off the gas pedal.
Some very telling words there from Speaker of the House Mike Johnson, talking about how Republicans lament the writings of the Constitution and how it restricts the president to 2 terms only. This is, again, Mike Johnson trying to talk out of both sides of his mouth, talking about the 22nd Amendment, but also trying to give Donald Trump more credit and saying that he's more trolling the Democrats than is actively trying to be serious about his run. But we know better than that on the left, to just take this as some sort of sick joke from Donald Trump. We've seen him use and abuse his powers before, and we have no reason to suggest that he won't do it for this exact moment as well. But that leads us to a clip here from Ruben Gallego, which is the juxtaposition from these Republican sycophantic ass kissers in Mike Johnson, in Tommy Tuberville, and in the rest of these people not actively calling out Donald Trump for his rhetoric. People like James Comer, that was on CNN, trying to do his best, defensive position for Donald Trump in order to make this seem like it's not a big deal or anything that should be, investigated. The same thing is his, $800 million crypto haul that he's got from the illegal, unrestricted crypto farming that he's been doing. But again, here's Ruben Gallego with what is the appropriate response, or should be the appropriate response from all politicians, all people that care about democracy, all people that care about the Constitution and what goes on in this country. This is how you should handle this question when being asked. And here's Ruben Gallego on CNN answering this question the exact way that you should. Here, check it out.
The president has entertained talk of him having a 3rd term, selling Trump 2028 hats, and the House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he had a private conversation with the president about the constrictions of the Constitution. How seriously do you or don't you take the possibility of the president trying to have a 3rd term in office?
I don't take it seriously because he will, be in violation of the Constitution, and he should be arrested if he attempts to do that.
You think he should be arrested if he attempts to have a 3rd term in any way? At what point? I mean, if he talks about it, what constitutes doing that in your view?
If he files to run for presidency and attempts to run for elections, and then circumvents and ignores the rules, I think that would be a quick decision by the Supreme Court. Then at that point, once his presidency is up, when he is, supposed to be, out of office, he's a violation of the Constitution of the United States, and he should be arrested.
All right.
In my opinion, there's really only one way to answer this question, and this is it. If Donald Trump is going to knowingly and willingly defy the Constitution and break the law, he should be arrested and tried for those crimes. Period. Point blank. End of story. No further discussion. And it's people like Tommy Tuberville, and it's people like Mike Johnson, and it's people like the rest of these mealy-mouthed morons trying to actually butter up Donald Trump and, give him some avenue in order to explore these, unconstitutional routes that he's willing to take here in order to, maintain power and his grip on authority, which is exactly what fascists and authoritarians love to do. They're doing a disservice to this country. But again, this is just openly people outing themselves as fascists, outing themselves as weak, ineffective leaders who are unable and unwilling to stand up to their dear authoritarian leader in Donald Trump, the dear Fuhrer, when they know what the rules are, when they know what the laws are, when they know damn well what the Constitution says. But I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. We'll be back with more videos. Again, I'm Boston Brian, filling in for Jesse Dollemore here at the Dollemore Daily until Jesse can return home from Japan. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate your support. I appreciate your patience. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and please head over to my channel, Boston Brian. I host a great podcast called Blunt Politics. I would very much appreciate if you went over there, gave me a shot, gave me a chance. It would be very much appreciated. But until next time, I'm Boston Brian. Keep fighting, get out of your seats, get into the streets. find your nearest protest, find your nearest rally, stay proud, stay loud, stay aggressive, but keep your head on a swivel out there. Make sure you're staying safe. All right. I'll see you next time. I'll catch you later. Keep kicking ass. Let's go. Remember, this is all happening in the midst of a government shutdown as Donald Trump's in the process of building a $300 million golden ballroom dedicated to Jeffrey Epstein as he's, globe trotting around the world, receiving lavish golden gifts from world leaders all over the place.
With respect to SNAP funding in particular, it is a conscious, deliberate choice that the administration is making to not release the funds that have been appropriated for that purpose. That is why 26 states are suing the Trump administration and Secretary Rollins. Does anyone here not believe that with one phone call from Speaker Johnson, one phone call to the President of the United States or the Secretary of Agriculture, that those funds would be released tomorrow? Yes. And that families wouldn't go starving by the weekend? So I think it's important to dispense with again, rationalizations and excuses that Republicans have offered. They have made this choice. They know it. We know it. The American people know it as well.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Dollemore Daily. I'm Boston Bryan, host of Blunt Politics, and I shall be your captain for just a little while longer as Jesse continues to make his trek back from Japan. We're going to be diving into the conversation here of SNAP benefits. It's not often that I get to applaud Democrats for their straightforward, in-your-face rhetoric and getting in front of all of these, propagandistic talking points from the Republicans. But this is one of those instances in which I am very happy to see that both House and Senate Democrats using their time in front of the cameras today, to do just that, to get out the points that they wanted to make sure the American people know exactly why 40 million Americans are going to lose their ability to put food on the table because Donald Trump and Republicans refuse to use the emergency powers in order to continue to fund SNAP benefits. You heard in the beginning Jonah Goose, I believe from Colorado, coming and pointing out, the hypocrisies. He continues to do so here in this next clip. Again, very important that we continue to point out not only Donald Trump's treks around the world that he's on, but also the money that he's been feeding to places like Argentina, the ways he's been hurting people in this country like farmers, like immigrants, what he's been doing to the economy as far as tariffs. It's very important we continue to highlight these things, and it's very important that Democrats, especially those in front of the cameras, continue to be straightforward in their talking points, in their rhetoric, making sure the American people have absolutely no questions as to why, again, 40 million Americans will be struggling to put food on the table. Here's another clip from Congressman Joe Neguse, again, bringing up that exact fact. Listen to this clip. Check it out. And let me know what you think.
And for my Republican colleagues who suggest all sorts of fanciful rationales for why the administration has been unwilling to do so, I would just simply say it is outrageous that the Trump administration can come up with $40 billion to bail out Argentina and refuses to spend the money that Congress has appropriated to feed hungry families in America. Outrageous. And House Democrats won't stand for it.
And here's yet another Democrat who's under constant threat, constant attack by people like Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, Donald Trump, and the rest of the Republican gang. Governor J.B. Pritzker, who's been doing a fantastic job at combating Donald Trump and his bullshit, at least rhetorically at this point, which is pretty much all we can do. But he's doing a great job here in this next clip, laying it on the line for the American people, spitting it out as clearly and as plainly as humanly possible so people can understand who has the power in this position and exactly who to blame when, again, people go hungry, as we see $40 billion plus be sent to places like Argentina, as we see a $300 million gold ballroom that should be dedicated, at least in my opinion, to the 1 million Americans that lost their lives because of Donald Trump's incompetence in handling COVID when he was president in his first term. But that's another conversation for another time. But here's J.B. Pritzker again, laying it on the line for the American people to hear very plainly, very clearly, which is exactly what we need in this moment here. Check it out. And just to give you something to compare what we've heard so far to, just to give you a little juxtaposition, just so you can hear what it sounds like when you're a boot-licking, ass-kissing, mealy-mouthed moron like Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is, when you'd rather, obfuscate, when you'd rather, deflect from the question of, again, 40 million Americans possibly going hungry, when you'd rather, kiss the boot of Donald Trump and praise him for these fake, made-up accomplishments that he supposedly is going around the world touting to all these other countries that actually know better, that actually point and laugh as soon as Donald Trump leaves the room. But again, just so you can hear the difference in between, the straightforward rhetoric from the Democrats telling you exactly how it is, and then compare that to, people like Mike Johnson and the rest of these, again, sycophantic Republicans who, again, would rather dodge the question only to praise their dear leader as opposed to answer the real pressing issues faced by the American people. But again, here's Mike Johnson, and you can compare that to what we've heard so far.
So many Americans right now. How do you justify the administration giving this big, massive bailout to Argentina, as well as calling for an increase in beef imports from Argentina?
Look, we give foreign policy, the execution of foreign policy, to the executive branch. That's what the president is doing right now. There's lots of nuances about that. He's involved in negotiating trade agreements around the country to great success and benefit of the American people right now. Dozens of them being worked out. He's overseas right now doing the same thing. And what he accomplished in Japan is a remarkable thing for the American people. And by the way, they've agreed to invest $550 billion into America, and that's good for everyone. So I can't get into the nuances of every single trade agreement with every country around the world, but we're going to trust the president to do what he's doing. He's had a remarkable track record of success for the American people, and nobody in this room can refute it. So I'm going to leave it right there.
He's just the most pathetic excuse for a man that I know. He's just a lying, greasy, weaselly piece of shit that is out there with a smile on his face doing Donald Trump's bidding. As again, he deflects and obfuscates away from the question about 40 million Americans that are about to lose their SNAP benefits, as $40 billion is being sent to places like Argentina. And again, this administration who came in touting, this incredible win in the election and the overwhelming mandate and the fact that they were going to be able to do anything and everything they wanted without the help or assistance or recommendations of the Democrats. And again, that doesn't seem to be the position that they find themselves in. That lie went out the window real quick to their voters. And now we're heading into day 30 of the government shutdown. But again, you can hear the difference, which kind of brings us back to the Senate Democrat portion of this video, where again, both House and Senate Democrats were out there telling it as it is, putting it on the line, letting the American people know exactly who has the power here and exactly who could change this policy if they so choose. Ed Markey calling it a moral failure, a failure of this government, and just the prime example of incompetency shown by not only the Republicans in the House and the Senate, but also the leadership from Donald Trump and the sycophants surrounding him. But again, here's Ed Markey. Let me know what you think. Again, love when Democrats speak plainly, when they put it on the line like this, when they don't beat around the bush, when they don't, put it into this political jargon, none of this bullshit that's been kind of looked over by 14 different assistants and made to, sound perfect. Just come out there, lay it on the line, speak from the heart, tell it how it is, and the American people will respect you more for it. But again, here's Ed Markey putting it on the line. Let's check it out and let me know what you think.
This moment isn't just an economic failure. This isn't just a civic failure. This is an utter moral failure for the Trump administration and MAGA Republicans. The president could choose to end this crisis today with just one vote. Republicans could restore health care and food assistance for millions of families across our country and reopen the government. Just one vote. But the president can use his emergency power to solve the health care problems that are going to be created by the food crisis. And he can do it right now, and he should do it.
I might be a little biased in this discussion, but I just feel like it's people from New England that have an easier time speaking more bluntly, more clearly, and directly to the point, as Ed Markey did in that clip we just saw. But, even people like, Democratic Senator from Vermont, Peter Welch, were out there using his time in front of the camera, using his time at the podium very wisely to make it very clear to the American people what's going on here and how this isn't attached to the government shutdown and could be funded through other means, and it just takes the will of the president, the will of the Republicans to care about their American constituents who are going to, again, struggle to put food on the table in order to lift a finger, in order to get to the negotiating table, in order to make a change in this policy so we don't see exactly that on top of all of the other moral and ethical failures from this government, both domestic and abroad. But again, here's Democratic Senator from Vermont, Peter Welch, again, following the line of both the House and Democratic senators of getting out there in front of the cameras and making sure the American people are well informed and are up to date and up to speed on how this is going and why people will suffer and who is responsible for that suffering.
Thank you, Bernie, for calling this. Number one, this is not about the shutdown. You know, many of you who have asked us, are you getting pressure? Because now SNAP benefits are going to expire, and therefore, shouldn't you reopen government? That is a fair question, but there's a clear answer. This has nothing to do with the shutdown. The law requires, and the funds are available to continue SNAP right now without any interruption. So that is a decision that the president is making on his own, to allow people to go hungry when he has the power to continue the SNAP benefits that folks desperately need.
Remember, this is all happening in the midst of a government shutdown as Donald Trump's in the process of building a $300 million golden ballroom dedicated to Jeffrey Epstein, as he's already turned the White House into some Tibu Liberace-looking studio, as he's, globe-trotting around the world, receiving lavish golden gifts from world leaders all over the place, as he's making almost $900 million on his crypto scam, his unregulated crypto scam. I mean, the list just goes on as how the optics of this just continue to get worse and worse, especially with somebody that claims to have so much power. To look this feckless, to look this, incompetent, and corrupt is it's really a feat to see. But again, I really do appreciate the Democrats, both in the House and the Senate, coming out, laying it on the line, making sure people know just how ridiculous this looks, knowing just who has the power, and knowing, who to blame when, again, you are struggling to put food on the table, when you're struggling to feed your family, when you're struggling to feed your kids, when you're, a soybean farmer going out of business, watching Donald Trump send $40 billion to Argentina as China's buying all the Argentinian soybean, again, harming more farmers in this country, as we're seeing immigrants and United States citizens rounded up by the dozens, as we're seeing this government randomly pick off and kill people, 60 at this point, people in fishing boats in international water without any evidence to suggest that they are anything other than just fishermen at this point. But as all that's going on, we still have the president who does not give a shit about anybody but himself and does not care to look out for his constituents or anybody in this country, until or unless it's profitable to him. And that's just not what's going on in this case. But I do appreciate you guys. Once again, thanks to Jesse for allowing me to fill in for him as he makes his way back from Tokyo. Thank you guys for your support and your patience along this journey. I really do appreciate it. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. That would be a big boost for Jesse to continue to see subscribers filling in as he's coming back into the country. And if you would be kind enough to please head over to Blunt Politics at my channel over there on Boston Brian, on YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter, the whole 9 yards, Blue Sky. Please follow me where you can. I really do appreciate it. Thank you guys. I'll see you and catch you on the next one. Make sure you're kicking ass. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get out there, stay loud, stay proud, find your nearest protest, find your nearest rally. Let's go, ladies and gentlemen. We got the momentum. Let's carry it into the midterms and take down this buffoon. You should be ashamed for the rest of time to have clips on the internet, clips that people can pull up at will.
I don't know about you, but I'm offended that somebody in 2023 would subpoena my phone records to find out where I was at when I called somebody and who I called and where they were at. It's none of their damn business. I have a constitutional duty, like the rest of us here, as chairman of the committee regarding the 2020 election. I don't think the 2020 election bothered anybody until Trump decided to run in 2024.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Dollemore Daily. I'm your host, Boston Brian, host of Blunt Politics, and filling in for Jesse while he's traveling home. And oh boy, Lindsey Graham. There's just sometimes you come across in these instances when you do the work that I do, and coming across these clips that you see that just enrage you without warning, and there's nothing you can do to control it. It is just, sometimes you just can't help but be incensed at some of the hypocrisy, the bullshit, and the lies and the cowardice coming from these people. This time being a half-drunk sounding Lindsey Graham telling you that nobody cared about the 2020 election until Donald Trump decided to run in 2024. Now, just to run you through a bit of the hypocrisy here, this is Lindsey Graham, who was legally implicated in the 2020 shenanigans surrounding the 2020 election because he called Brad Raffensperger, the Secretary of State for Georgia, to pressure him to somehow lose votes or to throw away votes so that Donald Trump could win that state. And this is what Brad Raffensperger had to say on that matter after it was found out that Lindsey Graham had made those phone calls. Check it out.
That then Senator Graham implied, for us to audit the envelopes and throw out ballots of counties who had the highest frequency error rate of signatures, and told him that's something that we couldn't do. And I probably then just realized, didn't know what to do with that. So I just thought, well, let me talk to our counsel and I'll call you back. And I never called him back. And then all of a sudden, President Trump tweeted out, and an attorney, Lynn Wood's lawsuit was really along that same line. And if you look at that Michigan lawsuit that's been filed, it's really along that same law.
So when a sackless coward like Lindsey Graham goes on to say stupid shit like this,
I don't think the 2020 election bothered anybody until Trump decided to run in 2024.
he should probably take a long, hard look in the mirror, because it was he who was used as a political pawn, as a political weapon by his Fuhrer, Donald Trump, so he could make phone calls, illegal phone calls, and pressure state election officials to throw away votes in order to give Donald Trump the game, in order to give away the election to Donald Trump. So when he tells you that nobody cared about the 2020 election, it's the most blatant, utter hypocrisy you could possibly imagine. I mean, who can forget this moment, one of the most famous moments after January 6th, when the Republicans stormed the Capitol in order to try to stop the certification of the election because they didn't approve. When Lindsey Graham said he was out, count him out. It was done. He's seen enough. And then I'll show you just after this what it took for Lindsey Graham to get back on the Trump train, to get back on the Trump bandwagon. And it wasn't being treated nicely by the people that he's surrounded by, I can tell you that much. But here's the most famous, probably the most famous clip of Lindsey Graham after January 6th. Check it out.
And it gives credibility to a dark chapter of our history. That's why I'm not with you. But I will fight to my death for you. You're able to object. You're not doing anything wrong. Other people have objected. I just think it's a uniquely bad idea to delay this election. Trump and I, we've had a hell of a journey. I hate it being this way. Oh my God, I hate it. From my point of view, he's been a consequential president. But today, first thing you'll see. All I can say is count me out. Enough is enough. I've tried to be helpful.
Yeah, you really stuck to your guns on that one, didn't you, Lindsey? And don't forget this lesser-known clip from around the same time frame, from after January 6th, where Lindsey Graham actually went on national television fighting back the tears, doing his best to hold back the emotion, because he's so distraught that he has to go on TV to criticize his dear friend, his dear leader, the Fuhrer, Donald Trump, who wouldn't piss on Lindsey's grave if he was on fire, after he again sicked his entire fucking political base onto the Capitol in order to stop the counting of a free and fair election, actively putting people and officers and politicians in active danger, causing active harm. And then we can take a look at how MAGA managed to sway Lindsey Graham to get back on the gravy train, to get back on the Trump train. And again, it didn't take too much coercion. It didn't take too much persuasion. But here it is, Lindsey Graham in the lesser-known clip from after January 6th, where he actually is fighting back the tears because he's so cowardly, and he's so afraid that he has to go on television and call out his dear friend, his dear leader. Check it out.
It breaks my heart that my friend, a president of a consequence, would allow yesterday to happen. And it will be a major part of his presidency.
Which brings us to my favorite part of this infuriating, hypocritical story. It's where Lindsey Graham was finally treated by his MAGA folk, where he dared go against the grain, where he dared step out of bounds, where he dared go against what the Fuhrer was trying to accomplish, when he for a second tried to, or at least thought he was going to stand on his beliefs, even though that would only bring him up to about 5-4. For a second, he stood on his beliefs. But what did it take for him to get back behind Donald Trump, the man he said he was done with, the man he said he had tried to help, the man he said and had been proven to have made illegal phone calls to people like Brad Raffensperger to get him to, try to sway the election, to get him to toss out votes in order to hand the election to Donald Trump? What did he get for all of his services? How was he treated when he was, greeted in public? How did his MAGA base treat him and receive him in the airport? This is my favorite part. Look at how he was received, and it literally only took about 1 or 2 of these moments in order to push Lindsey Graham right back into MAGA's arms, right back into Donald Trump's grasp. He obviously has no principles, no beliefs. He's a soulless hack. He should be ashamed for the rest of time to have clips on the internet, clips that people can pull up at will, hearing him say the things that he said after January 6th, and then to see him now talking about the 2020 election like nobody gave a shit, like nobody cared, like the people didn't storm the Capitol as a result, like there wasn't a noose and a gallows put outside of the Capitol as a result, like Donald Trump didn't try everything under the sun to steal that election. I mean, the hypocrisy is almost too much to take. But let's take a look here at this beauteous clip of how MAGA treated Lindsey Graham when seeing him at the airport after his comments after January 6th, when he was no longer on the Trump train. And then look at Lindsey now.
You traitor! You traitor! You traitor! You're a traitor! Lindsey Graham, you are a traitor to the country! You know it was rigged! You know it was rigged! You know it was rigged! You garbage human being! It's gonna be like this forever, wherever you go for the rest of your life! Audit the vote! Audit the vote! Audit the vote! Audit the vote! Piece of shit!
Oh, some days when I'm feeling sad or I'm feeling depressed, I pull that clip up and I actually start feeling immediately better about myself. But even after everything that Lindsey Graham has gone back on, he's, walked back every one of his statements. He's done everything that Donald Trump and MAGA has asked of them since. He still to this day does not have the respect of not only Donald Trump, but the MAGA base. They still cannot stand him or people like him. Donald Trump absolutely, again, like I said, wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire. And that's the absolute truth. There's just no getting around that. Lindsey Graham immediately found himself on the outside of both camps as soon as he made those statements. Yes, they were going to accept him because they need his vote. Yes, they were going to accept him because they need him as a propaganda mouthpiece for this Trump regime. But in no way, shape, or form are they going to show him respect on any level when they don't need to, when he's not wanted, when he's not needed. He's just going to be shunned to the side exactly like he was, exactly like that lady was saying he was going to be walking through that airport. It was never going to stop, and it has never stopped, even though, again, this guy has bent the knee, has kissed the boot at every single turn. He still will not get that respect back from the base, and he's lost that completely. But, for him to bring up the 2020 election, for him to bring up, his phone calls and people not, needing the access to where he was or where he called, he was talking directly about his call to Brad Raffensperger. And when he talks about people not caring about the 2020 election until Donald Trump decided to run in 2024, that is just complete and utter bullshit. Well, I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for the opportunity here at the Dollemore Daily. If you like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing, please feel free to hit a like on this video. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you like anything you're hearing from me, please feel free. Give me a chance over at Blunt Politics, over at Boston Brian here on YouTube. Check it out. Give me a shot. If you like what you're hearing over there, hit me with a like, hit me with a follow, hit me with a subscription. I would very much appreciate it. Until next time, keep kicking ass. Stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive. Don't let up on these people. No matter what you do, do not let up on these people. All right, let's get rid of these corrupt hacks once and for all. I appreciate you guys. I'm Boston Brian. I'll catch you on the next one.